Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Welcome everyone to our program. This is our second session. Inshallah, we are continuing on with our series, The Signs of the Last Days, The Signs of Qiyamah. And last week was our first session, and this week, every Friday night, inshallah, we're having this program. It's our second session. So just as a quick recap, we want to talk a little bit about what we covered last week. So last week we kind of did an introduction to the series, what we're going to be learning about, and we discussed in detail what is the purpose of this series. Why are we doing this series, and what is the benefit? What do we get out of this? So mashallah, we have a lot of brothers and sisters that are listening. Let's see how much you have retained. So inshallah, anyone could tell me something. What is the purpose? What is the reason? What is the benefit? Why we're doing this series and what we get out of this? Last week we covered 6 of them. Bismillah, anyone?
Prepare ourselves.
Okay, good. To prepare yourself. So when you're talking about Qiyamah, you're talking about its signs, then automatically you become prepared because you know something is up ahead of you.
Building your faith and conviction.
Alright, that was a big one. Is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ 1400 years ago, he said A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all of these things will happen. And then one by one, you see them taking place. You see them happening in occurrence. That builds your faith, that builds your iman. That look, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us every one of these little details that's going to happen, and right before our eyes we see it happen. What else? It gives you tranquility and ease. Right? We talked about how when you know something that's going to happen, you know that something is up ahead of you. When it happens, it gives you ease because you're expecting it now. Right? Anything else?
Remove false information.
Removing false information. Right? So some people, they have all of these different theories about the ends of times, when it's going to happen. They place a date, they release a book, and then all of a sudden when that date comes and you're waiting and everything is normal. So then what happens? They got to make a new edition number 2, and then they give a new whole hypothesis and reason. Why is Qiyamah? When is the last day? When it's going to be? They give a whole nother, a whole nother reasoning and a whole nother time, and then again they have to keep changing. So all that false information that's out there, the reason why we learn this, you get rid of all of that false info and you rely on what is true, what the Prophet ﷺ, what he taught us, right, from amongst the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah. Okay, so inshallah we're going to continue with some of the things that Rasulullah ﷺ, what he taught us. And the greatest aspect of learning the signs of Qiyamah is that it builds your faith, it builds your iman. That's the greatest out of all of them. That was the 6th one, and the greatest of them all is that, you learn Sadaqa Rasulullah ﷺ. Everything that he said, it all came from inspiration from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. Nothing that the Prophet ﷺ said was from his own side. Anything that came out from his mouth, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, he does not speak out of his desire. He only speaks that which has been revealed to him. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. So that's why you see, whatever Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spoke, it was always the truth, and it came out to be exactly as he said. Now some people get this doubt, that some people make predictions here and there, and it turns out to be true. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made a prediction, he made an assumption, and then it turned out to be true. So what's the big deal? Right? Like right now someone can say, hey man, I bet you next week the Raiders are going to win the game. And then the next game they're going to lose. And then the next 3 after that they'll win. You can make a guess and it could come out to be true. Right? Who's going to win the election? You can give give your assumption and give your guess, and then it turns out to be true. So what's the difference with our assumptions that normal human beings make, and when the Prophet ﷺ says that something is going to happen? What is the difference? So number one, and the biggest difference that you'll know, is that with human beings, your assumption is based off of a guess. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's false, right? You won't find anyone that they're making guess upon guess upon guess upon guess, and then every time it comes out to be right. No, someone will maybe say one thing or two things, and the rest of them are going to be incorrect. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. In the time of Jahiliyyah, the people used to have this thing that they would do, a lot of sorcery and soothsaying. So they would involve a lot of jinnat and spirits and things like that. So they would, the jinnat would go up and they would listen. What are the angels and the malaika speaking about? And then these jinnat would come down, and these soothsayers, people who are involved with sorcery and magic, they would communicate with these jinnat, with these, spirits, these jinns. And they would exchange information. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that from the things that they would share, there would be one truth mixed with 100 lies. One truth that was mixed with 100 lies. So human beings, when they make guesses, these are just assumptions. When Rasulullah ﷺ makes this prophecy, it's not a guess, and it's not an assumption. It's something that's directly coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So when somebody, automatically they come out of somewhere with a very, very far-fetched thing which nobody's even thinking about. For example, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we all know Surah Ar-Rum. It's a great surah of the Quran. And in that surah, why was it revealed? It was revealed because the Romans and the Persians, they had a war between each other. And the Romans, they were min Ahl al-Kitab. They believed in the scripture. They were Christians. So they had some affinity with Muslims and Islam. Because we also believe in the book. We believe in one God. We believe in the malaika. We believe in the angels. We believe in the hereafter. So very, we have a lot of similarities with the Christians and with the Ahlul Kitab. And on the other side, you had the Persians, who at that time, they were fire worshippers. They had a close affinity and relationship with the mushrikeen of Quraysh. So basically, it was like, the Muslims were like, yes, we want the Romans to win. And the mushrikeen, they're like, Persians, yes, we want the fire worshippers to get the other hand. Because they were worshipping other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then what happened? The Persians won. And the Quraysh, they were boasting about it. Look, the fire worshippers, we got you guys, we defeated you. And like this, the Muslims will also be defeated in Makkah. You'll also be defeated one day. So then Surah Ar-Rum was revealed. And it says in Surah Ar-Rum, right in the beginning, غُلِبَتِ الرُّومِ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ. That just give it a couple years, the Romans will become victorious over the Persians. Over those fire worshippers, they will become victorious. So once this took place, it's an ayat of the Quran, it's revealed. Now it's going to happen definitely for sure. So Abu Bakr Siddeeq radiyallahu anhu, as soon as this was revealed, and Abu Bakr was a businessman, and this was before the hijrah, so gambling was not impermissible at this time. So he went to all of the Quraysh and he said, let's make a bet. Give it a couple years, Persians are going down. He says, really? He said, absolutely, 100% I know, because this was revealed. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he makes a prophecy, it does not fail. And exactly as the Prophet ﷺ said, that is exactly what happened. So from this we can see Rasulullah ﷺ, he wasn't a person that would, some people, they like to speak a lot. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. And from 100 things that they say, 2 things come out to be true. The Prophet ﷺ, his words were very carefully measured. He was not a person that just went around yip-yapping. The Prophet ﷺ, he chose his words very wisely. And when he spoke, people would listen and they took his words very, very seriously. So when Rasulullah ﷺ made plenty of these prophecies, and every single one of them comes out to be true, what does that show you? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was not speaking from his own side. He was not speaking from putting A and B together, so my conclusion will be C. C plus D, then it's going to equal this. Okay, so my guess is this. No, when the Prophet ﷺ gives these prophecies, they come directly from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And you see in many cases where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned these things. And from amongst the biggest ones we learn from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where once he was walking on Mount Uhud in Medina Munawwara. And who was with him? Abu Bakr Siddeeq radiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. They're together walking where? On top of Mount Uhud. And suddenly what happens? Uhud starts to shake. The mountain starts trembling. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he speaks to Mount Uhud. He says, "Uthbut Uhud, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ نَبِيٌّ وَصِدِّيقٌ وَشَهِيدًا." Relax, Uhud. Stay still. Stop moving and stop shaking. Do you know who's on top of you walking? There's a Nabi. There is a Siddeeq, referring to Abu Bakr Siddeeq. And that means a person who's reached a very, very high level of closeness and proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you have a Nabi on top of you. You have a Siddeeq on top of you. And you have two martyrs. You have two shaheeds that are walking on top of you. So if the Prophet ﷺ, he's the Nabi, the Siddeeq is referring to Abu Bakr. So who are the two shaheeds remaining then? Umar ibn al-Khattab and Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. Bam, there it goes. Basically the Prophet ﷺ is saying right there that look, these two great men, these auspicious men of my ummah, these great companions of mine, Umar ibn al-Khattab and Uthman ibn Affan, they will leave this world how? With shahada. They will leave as martyrs. That was the prophecy which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made, and that is exactly what happened. And the Prophet alayhi salam, with the passing specifically of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he had mentioned certain things to Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu. And if you guys remember last week, we talked a little bit about Hudhayfah radiyallahu anhu, how he was very keen about these things. He had a great interest in learning about signs of Qiyamah, the destruction of the world, what's going to happen in the end times. So he would go a lot to the Prophet ﷺ and ask these type of questions. And secretly, discreetly, the Prophet ﷺ would tell him all of these things. That's why he was known as the keeper of secrets of the Prophet ﷺ. He knew a lot of things that other companions radiyallahu anhum, which they did not know. And from amongst these things, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, what did the Prophet ﷺ say about him? He said, لَوْ كَانَ بَعْدِي نَبِيٌّ لَكَانَ عُمَرٌ. Yes, I'm the last prophet. There's no prophet that's going to come after me. But if there were to be a prophet coming after me, it would have been Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Look at his status. Look at how great he was. If there would have been another prophet, it would have been that man radiyallahu anhu. So many times you see that Umar radiyallahu anhu, he would come to the Prophet ﷺ and he would say, my desire and my wish is that so and so should happen. The Shariat should be like this. I wish that that would happen. Shortly after, what would happen? Ayat would be revealed exactly according to Umar radiyallahu anhu's wish. Exactly according to his wish. So that's why they would say, like so many ayat, they were revealed in favor of Umar radiyallahu anhu because of his blessing. Because of things that he would say, things that he would think, the Quran would be revealed accordingly. So he was a person who was inspired. He was a very, very special man. So much so, Rasulullah ﷺ mentioned, مَا سَلَكَ فَجًّا مَا سَلَكَ الشَّيْطَانُ فَجًّا or كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. I forgot the wording of the hadith, but the Prophet ﷺ said, Umar does not travel on any alleyway except that the shaitan will run away and travel on a different alley. Shaitan doesn't even want to be near that man. Shaitan is so scared of that man. He won't go on the same alleyway. Umar is there? I better make a U-turn. I'm going the other way. Right? Imagine, brothers and sisters, today, you know, so many people, we complain and we cry that we commit sins and we're involved in this and we're involved in that. And we say, man, Shaitan is so strong. Shaitan just gets me, you know. Shaitan got me. I don't know what happened. Shaitan, he just got me, you know. But look at Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. He was such a man that he worked on his faith, he worked on his iman to such a degree He doesn't have to worry about shaitan. Shaitan runs from him. We run from shaitan, right? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Afghans pull their ears when a sin is happening, right? You're running away. Shaitan would run away from Umar radiyallahu anhu. Despite this, my brothers and sisters, despite the honor that Allah had granted this man, despite his proximity to Allah, his proximity to the Prophet alayhi salam, what a great man he was and how much people respected him and looked up to him. The keeper of secrets of the Prophet ﷺ was Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman. Amongst the secrets that he had a list. All of the hypocrites. Because in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there were a lot of people that were not Muslims. They would pretend like they're Muslim. Because why? They were in fear. Man, Muslims are getting so much influence. I shouldn't be against them. I should be with them. But they didn't really have iman. They didn't really have faith. So they came close to Muslims, pretending to be believers, but they didn't actually believe. They were just there to make a show. And they had bad intentions. And the Prophet ﷺ knew exactly which ones are the hypocrites, which ones are the believers. But due to whatever wisdom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, He decided not to disclose who those people are. Except to Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu. So now, it's mentioned in the narrations that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Now again, when I'm saying Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, if you truly understand who this man was, just by saying his name, the hairs on your neck should stand up. This is not a normal man. Umar radiyallahu anhu, this is not a normal person. This is a man shaitan was running from. This is a man that Rasulullah ﷺ said, he would have been the next prophet had there been more prophets after me. This is a man that Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, they revered him deeply. They revered him deeply. They would not speak in front of him. They would not dare to even walk in front of him. Abu Bakr Siddeeq as well, and Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. So look at the status Allah had given him, but look at his humility. He would go to Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu, and he said, please tell me. Please tell me. And Hudhayfah radiyallahu anhu said, please tell you what? What are you asking me? He said, you have that list. Tell me, is my name on that list of hypocrites or no? Tell me, is my name on that list or no? Who is this? This is Umar ibn al-Khattab. A man that the Prophet ﷺ promised him Jannah. But look at his humility. He does not trust himself. He does not deem himself to be a pious person. He's worried. Maybe I have hypocrisy inside of my heart. My brothers and sisters, let's look at the way Umar was and let's look at the way we are. Let's look at the way Umar radiyallahu anhu was and let's look at how we are. Us, the moment you read Quran, the moment we do something good, the moment we give some charity, we're the most generous person that the world has ever created. We're the greatest Muslims that the world can ever. I prayed Salatul Tahajjud. Man, no one's better than me. I'm set. I'm good. Pop your collar on that one too. Nobody can say anything to me, man. I performed Tahajjud for 10 years. Umar radiyallahu anhu, he was that man. He would cry at night in Salatul Tahajjud. He would disguise himself and go around in the neighborhoods and seek the needs of the people. And he would fast during the day. He would be in battle. He would fast during the day. He would pray during the night. He would battle alongside the Prophet ﷺ. And after all of this, he's crying at nighttime and he's saying, Ya Allah, am I amongst the hypocrites or no? I don't know. Is this accepted from me or no? I don't know if my intentions are clear or no. One thing we learn from Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu anhu, be humble. And always remember, أنظر أن تنظر إلى من هو فوقي ولا أن أنظر إلى من هو دوني. When it comes to world, when it comes to dunya, look at those people who are lower than you. Don't look at those people who are above you. What does that mean? Look at the poor people. Look at the conditions that they're living in. You will protect yourself. Subhanallah, you buy some new shoes. Man, I don't really like these shoes. They don't really look that good. Look at that guy, he's got those Jordans. Don't look at the Jordans. Look at the guy that's can't even afford sandals. Look at the guy that's walking barefoot. And you will appreciate those cheap shoes that you bought. Don't look at the people who are above you. Right? You buy a brand new car, you see someone's driving a Mercedes, Lexus. You look there and you're like, wow, my car is so ugly now. look at those who are below you when it comes to dunya. But when it comes to deen, you look at those who are above you. And why is that? Because if you look at who's below you, man, subhanallah, today I performed 4 salah. Alhamdulillah. That guy right there, he doesn't even pray at all. I at least did 3. I did 2. You're not excelling. You must compare yourself to those who are people like Umar ibn al-Khattab, people who are like Abu Bakr Siddiq. Then you know, man, I got a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do on myself. Umar radiallahu anhu, he was that type of person. And inshallah we're going to do. When he passed away radiallahu anhu, and he was martyred, the people came to him and they started praising him. Said, you're the Amirul Mu'mineen. You're the great man that the Prophet ﷺ promised so many good things to. You are the leader of this ummah. Everybody's pleased with you. The Prophet ﷺ was pleased with you when he passed away and he left this world. And guess what Umar said after that? He said, Wallahi, I wish that at this moment nothing was in my account. Laysa li wala alayya. Nothing in my benefit and nothing against me. If I was just like a piece of grass, if I was just like a leaf, done away with, no hisab, no accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I'm afraid. I don't know where I'm going to end up. I don't know if I'll be successful. That was the humility that Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, how he had. And why is their martyrdom, their shahada, why is it considered from amongst the signs of Qiyamah? Specifically these people. Why their martyrdom is considered from the signs of Qiyamah? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in the hadith of Bukhari, لا يأتي على الناس زمان إلا والتي بعده شر منه أو كما قال, that no time will come upon people except that the time which comes after is going to be worse. The best time, as the Prophet ﷺ said, خير أمتي قرني, the best of nations is my nation. The best of nations is my nation. Yani my generation. The people, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And then ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ, those who will come next. That's the tabi'een. And then ثُمَّ الَّذِينَ يَلُونَهُمْ, the tabi'een. Those were the best of generations. And as you keep going further and further and further away, it gets worse and worse. So the fitnas that would start to come, they would start to become prevalent when? After these great Khulafa'i Rashideen, they would pass away from this world. So the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned about the ends of times, starting off with these shuhada that would take place. And as a matter of fact, before this, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned u'udud sittan, that you can count 6 things that would be signs of the ends of times. And the first one that he mentioned was his own demise, mawti, the passing of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because obviously, with his presence, there's mercy on the earth, there's protection on the earth, there's safety on the earth. Then with his passing, there's still some goodness, because you have who? Abu Bakr Siddiq. Then with his passing, okay, it's bad. It's bad for the world. It's bad for the ummah. Shaitan is rejoicing. Shaitan feels happy now, right? But now next, who do you have? You still have Umar is there. Umar is gone, Uthman is still there. As the people are slowly going, Shaitan is becoming more and more powerful. And his fitnas will slowly start to spread more and more. So specifically now, we're going to go into the topic of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And it starts off with his conversation with none other than Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu. So he goes to Hudhayfah radiyallahu anhu, who is again the keeper of secrets of the Prophet alayhi salam, and he says to him, "O Hudhayfah, can you tell me about the trials that will take place? Tell me about the trials that will take place." So Hudhayfah radiyallahu anhu, he says, "Yes, I will tell you." He says, there will be trials between a man and himself, trials between him and his family, trials between him and his children. Umar radiyallahu anhu says, no. That's not the fitna that I'm talking about. That's not the trials that I'm speaking about. Tell me about the fitna, allati tamuju mawj al-bahri. Tell me about those tribulations, those fitnas, which will erupt like the waves of the ocean. You know when the wave comes, it splashes everyone, it splashes everything that's in front of it, and you can hear that big noise. It's a very, very strong phenomenon that takes place. Tell me about that fitna. So then Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu, he said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O leader of the faithful, O leader of the believers, why are you concerned about that? You don't need to worry about it. Why? Because between you and those fitnas coming into place, there is a baban mughlaqan. There is a closed door. Between you and those trials, there is a door, and that door is sealed shut. So you don't have to worry about it, O Amir al-Mu'mineen. Your time, you're not going to experience these things. So look at Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu and his intelligence. He says, قال أفيكسر الباب أم يفتح. So that door which is between me and these trials which the Prophet ﷺ is speaking about, is that door going to be opened, or is that door going to be broken? There's a lot of secret words that are used here. He's saying there's a door between you and those trials. Now that door, it's locked. Umar asked radiyallahu anhu, is the door going to be unlocked and then opened, or is it going to just be broken down once and for all? So Hudhayfah radiyallahu anhu, what does he say? He says, Bal yuksar. That door, it'll be broken open. It's not going to be opened. It's not going to be opened with the lock or with the key. That door is going to be broken open. So then Umar radiyallahu anhu, how intelligent he was, he said, okay, if that's the case, then that door is probably not going to be shut again. If the door was broken open, it's not going to be closed again. It's going to remain open, and the trials will keep on flowing through. And that's exactly what the Prophet ﷺ said, that once those fitnas start to come, كَقِطَعٍ مِّنَ اللَّيْلِ الْمُظْلِمِ, like the dark pieces of the night, one after the other, they'll keep on coming down. Some riwayat say, like the droplets of the rain. One comes, then the second, then the third, it just keeps coming. It doesn't stop. And another riwayat says, like the tasbih, when it's broken, how do the little beads fall down? One after the other, after the other, after the other. Right? So some people will think, man, Qiyamah is far away. But all of these signs that come, they come fast. They come fast. They drop down. Very, very simultaneously and very, very quickly. So then they asked, while Hudhayfah radiyallahu anhu was narrating this hadith to his students afterwards, they said, did Umar know who that door was? Or what that door was? He said, of course he knew who that door was. Just like he knew tomorrow or yesterday, he knew exactly who that door is. So eventually they asked, they said, who was that door? Who was that door? I don't understand. What is it talking about? They said that door was Umar radiyallahu anhu himself. In other words, so long as Umar radiyallahu anhu was alive, he was a door. He was blocking tribulations. His presence was a barrier from all of the fitna, the trials and tribulations from coming upon this ummah. His mere presence was blocking all of those things from happening. And subhanallah, some of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, they picked this up and they knew that about Umar radiyallahu anhu. It's mentioned in one of the narrations, Imam Tabarani rahimahullah narrates, he says that once Umar radiyallahu anhu caught hold of Abu Dharr Ghifari radiyallahu anhu, and he took his hand, and you know Sahaba were very friendly people, so you know sometimes they would walk, they would hold each other, they would grab each other, you know, so Umar takes Abu Dharr's hand and he squeezes it really, really hard. غَمَزَهَا بِشِدَّةٍ, he squeezes his hand really, really hard, and they're walking. So Abu Dharr radiyallahu anhu, he says, Ya qufla al-fitnati, arsil yadi. O lock of the tribulations, please ease, lighten up on my hand. You're like breaking my hand. Easen up, O locker of the fitnas, O lock of the trials. Qufl. In Arabic, qufl means, like you put that lock onto a gate. That's called a qufl. It's sealing it tight. So even Abu Dharr Ghifari radiyallahu anhu, he knew that Umar is the lock of those trials and tribulations. So Umar asked him, he said, قُفْلَ الْفِتْنَةِ, I mean, people call me Amirul Mu'mineen, people call me Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now you come out with this title, Quflul Fitna, the lock of trials and tribulations. Where did you get this one from? So he says, I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, no fitna will afflict you guys. No fitna will afflict this ummah so long as Umar is amongst you. That was that protection, as long as Umar radiallahu anhu was alive. So there's a lot of detail with regards to how the people amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they also knew of Umar radiallahu anhu, that he is that lock. And one of the narrations mention, this is mentioned by Khatib Baghdadi rahimahullah, he says that Umar once went to his wife Kulthum radiallahu anha. She was the daughter of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. So he comes home and Kulthum is crying. So he says, why are you crying, O Kulthum? She says, don't you know that guy over there, he called you a door of Jahannam. So someone called Umar radiallahu anhu a door of Jahannam, and here she is at home and she's crying about it. So Umar radiallahu anhu, you know, like, look how these people were. If that was us, we'd be like, door of Jahannam? Oh man, who is this guy? He's got beef with me? Umar didn't even care. He said, oh, he said that? Oh, mashallah. It's in the hadith. He said, mashallah. Exactly, that lafz. He said, mashallah. That's all he said. And then later on, that same person, his name was Ka'b Ahbar, radiallahu anhu. He was previously from the Ahlul Kitab. So he had a lot of knowledge of the previous scriptures, the Tawrat, the Injil. So he had a lot of interest in those things because he studied it before he accepted Islam. So he sees Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and he says something along the lines of, oh, that's Umar, that's a man of Jannah. MashaAllah, Umar ibn al-Khattab, salam. That's a man of Jannah right there. So then Umar says, oh Ka'b, one day man of Jahannam, right? And one day man of Jannah. Yani, one day you call me the man, the guy on the door of Jahannam, and now you're calling me the man at the door of Jannah. What's up with this? So he says, yes, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, don't you know, it's in our books, our old scriptures, yani our books, he's talking about the books of the Ahlul Kitab, that a man which matches your description, he will be standing at the door of Jahannam, and he will be pushing people away. He will be preventing them from entering. Yani his shafa'ah, his intercession, he will be preventing people from entering Jahannam. This was in their books. Imagine that Umar radiallahu anhu, he was such a person, his description is even with the Ahlul Kitab. Yes, they knew about the Prophet ﷺ, they knew his description, but even his companions radiallahu ta'ala anhum, they knew about that as well. So, Umar radiallahu anhu, in his time, Islam spread far and wide, as we all know. He developed lots of political systems, he developed a registry, he developed, the Hijri calendar, he developed so many things which previously nothing had been done. Umar radiallahu anhu was the one who started all of these things. So he left a very, very big legacy, and Islam spread very, very far and wide. So now what happened was, you had a lot of people becoming acquainted with Islam and with Muslims, but not all of them were happy about it. Not all of them were happy about it, right? Because obviously they're seeing, wow, look, and that's also another prophecy of Rasulullah ﷺ about Islam spreading to all these faraway lands. Now you can imagine, you're in a small city, Medina Munawwara, there's a few helpers with you, there's a few Muhajireen and Ansar. Where would you imagine that Islam would go all the way to Africa and, Iraq and all the way towards China and all these different places? Prophet ﷺ prophesied that as well. So eventually what happens, Islam spreads far and wide, and some people are not happy about it. Umar radiallahu anhu, he had this policy that he made, that in Medina Munawwara, which is like the headquarters, right? Which is like the headquarters, the capital of the Muslim community, he only allowed those people who were on Islam for a long time. Basically, to get into Medina, you had to have a special visa. Not anyone would be allowed into Medina Munawwara, except if you had special permission. Right? If you were an old member of Islam, you were a person who's known, you're trustworthy, then you'll be allowed inside of Medina Munawwara. So what happened was, there was a companion radiallahu anhu, his name was Mughirah ibn Shu'bah radiallahu anhu. And he had a servant of his who was a great craftsman. He was an ironsmith, he was a carpenter, he had lots of skills that he could provide. So Mughirah ibn Shu'bah radiallahu anhu, he asked Umar radiallahu anhu, let this guy in. He was not a Muslim, he was a Majusi. Majusi means the worshipper of fire. So he calls this guy over, and he's asking permission. He can make a lot of stuff. He's a craftsman. He's a carpenter. He does this. He does that. So could he please have permission to come into Medina Munawwara? So Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, we'll give him ijazah. We'll give him permission. He can come into Medina Munawwara. So Mughirah ibn Shu'bah, and he has this servant working for him. His name was Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi. Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, he's already pissed off. He's a pissed off guy, right? He's mad. He's angry. Why is he angry? Because he's like, look, Muslims, man, they got all this land. They've become so successful. They're getting all of these riches. Their land has expanded so much. I got to get a special visa just so I can live in Medina. And now I'm working for this guy, Mughirah ibn Shu'bah. So he was angry as it is. And it's mentioned that when he would see the Muslim children in Medina Munawwara, he would walk past them and he would say like messed up stuff to them. He would say bad things to them, and he would say like, these little kids, they're the fortunate ones and they took over our land and this and that. And he was very, very hostile type of person. He would make these remarks secretly under his breath. So eventually what happened, he came to Umar ibn al-Khattab himself to lodge a complaint against Mughirah ibn Shu'bah. And he said, Mughirah ibn Shu'bah, he is asking too much of me. I'm not happy with the contracts that he's giving me for my work. So Umar asked him, he said, what's the contracts? You make mills. He would make mills and these kinds of things. So he said, what do you make? He says, I make this. It takes me that much time. So how many do you make in a day? He said, well, that seems fair. Go back to Mughirah ibn Shu'bah, keep working for him. He's giving you a fair deal. So basically, Umar radiallahu anhu, he did not issue his verdict in favor of Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi. You guys understand what's happening? He's already biased. Why? He doesn't like Muslims. He doesn't like Amirul Mu'mineen, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now on top of that, he wants to make a problem, lodge a complaint against Mughirah ibn Shu'bah. And then Umar radiallahu anhu told him it's not an issue. So now he's even more angry. Eventually, he's making these mills, and Amirul Mu'mineen passes by, and he says, hey, I heard you make these really nice mills. And why don't you carry on with this type of work? So he looks at Amirul Mu'mineen in a very weird way. And he says, yeah, I'll make a mill. I'll make such a mill, all the people will talk about it. A mill which you've never seen something like this before. So, Umar radiallahu anhu, he had what we call firasa. He had that foresight. He could see through people. He could tell, what a person is about. So he went to Ali radiallahu anhu afterwards and he said, did you see the way that man answered me? Right? Did you see the way that he replied? There was shar in his tone. There was evil in his tone. That was a threat from that man. And he said, Hasbi Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my protector. Allah is sufficient. And I'm not worried about him. Right? So Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they carry on. Everything is going normal. He's leading the ummah and everything is going fine. He goes for Hajj. And as he comes back, he kind of has an idea that his time is coming short. He starts mentioning his will. He gives his final khutbah. And I think it was like a week after or so, he was martyred. And in that last khutbah, he's alluding a lot towards his death, towards his demise. And he's saying, after me you must do this, after me you must do that. So he's giving a lot of indications that the time is actually coming pretty close. And within this time, Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, what does he do? He starts making his crafts. And what does he design? He designs a double-edged sword. A double-edged dagger. And what is he preparing this for? He's preparing this for Amirul Mu'mineen, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. And he dips it in poison. And he goes to all of the craftsmen and he says, take a look at this sword, tell me what you think about it. And all the people, they say, man, this sword is not going to go through anyone except that that person is going to be finished off. So he's making his plans, he's getting ready, and it was the time of Fajr Salah. Amirul Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he would go in front and he would straighten the sufuf, he would ask everyone to get straight, and then he would go in front and lead the Salah. So as he's straightening the rows and he's getting up to lead the Salah, this guy jumps in. The slave, the servant of Mughirah ibn Shu'bah, Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, he jumps from behind and he stabs Amirul Mu'mineen radiyallahu anhu. He stabbed him 3 times. في كتفه وفي خاصرته وفيما تحت سرته. One in his shoulder, one in his waist, and one just below his belly button. 3 strikes he gave to Amirul Mu'mineen radiyallahu anhu. And during this time, there's a lot of rows of people. And some of the people who are in the back, they don't even know what's happening. They're just continuing on with the salah because they can't really see what's taking place. And this guy, he runs towards the back, and whoever's in his way, he's stabbing people. And he, I believe it was 6 or 7, he made them shaheed. And about 13, 14 people, they were injured from his stab wounds. As he's running out, one of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, or Tabi'een, whoever it was, he takes one of his cloaks and he throws it over the guy's head. So he throws it over his head, the guy can't see, he falls down. Once he realizes that he's overpowered, he stabs himself and he kills himself. And that was the end of him. So Umar radiyallahu anhu, now he's wounded. As he is wounded, he says, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf radiyallahu anhu, he says, continue and lead the salah. Look at Umar, he just got stabbed, and this is the fatal blow. What is his instructions? Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, please lead the salah. Look at that, that's a legend. That's a real man. That's a real role model. He led the ummah all the way till his last breath. Look at what he says. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, lead the salah. He's got blood gushing from his shoulder, blood gushing from his stomach, blood is gushing from his waist and his hip. Oh, lead the salah. That's what's important right now. Call the doctor, leave the doctor. Salah is important right now. Finish the prayer, worry about me later. Finish the prayer, that's Allah's hukum. You can worry about me later. Amirul Mu'mineen radiyallahu anhu, once that took place, he fell unconscious. He tells him, lead the salah, and he falls unconscious. Now the people, they huddle around, they kind of see what happened. They're worried. They take Amirul Mu'mineen radiyallahu anhu, Umar, they take him back to his home, or I think it was the house of Ibn Umar, his son, and they lay him down, and they don't know what to do. And just before Fajr is about to finish, he gains consciousness and he wakes up. And again, the first thing that he says, the first words that come out of his mouth when he wakes up, is not, did I die? Is there a doctor? Is there a nurse? Can someone help me? I'm in pain. The first words that come out of his mouth, أَصَلَّ النَّاسُ. Did the people pray? Is salah over? Have the people performed Salatul Fajr? They said, yes, we have prayed. They got him his wudu, they got him his water, he performs wudu, and he performs his salah. Look at that. Dear listeners, dear brothers and sisters, look at this man's commitment. And what we see from his legacy and what we see from his life is the way you live your life, what you stand for during your life, in public and in privacy. The type of person that you are, that's how Allah will take you. He was a man of salah. He was a man of taqwa. He was a man of piety. He was a man of dignity. And those same colors that he showed during his life, he passed away showing those same colors. He died in salah, leading the Muslim ummah. So he finishes his salah, and they give him some nabidh. Nabidh is a special type of drink they would make, where they would put like dates inside of water, they would leave it overnight, and it would become sweet. And it's supposed to give you a lot of energy. And they gave him some of that drink. And as he drank it, he started leaking from his stomach. And nabidh is like a dark color. It's like a dark brown color. So they didn't know, is there blood gushing from his stomach or is it the nabidh? If it's blood, they thought maybe it's okay, because that means the wound must not be that deep. But if it's nabidh coming out, the wound is really deep because it's going straight from there and coming straight out from there. They couldn't tell. So then they gave him milk also. In some narrations it mentions. And then when the milk, it came out white. And then that's when they knew this is a very, very serious injury. And Amir al-Mu'mineen radiyallahu anhu, he might not make it. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen, he asks, who was the person that did this? Who was the person responsible? Who was the man that stabbed me with that dagger? Who was he? They said it was Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi. And what does Umar radiallahu anhu say right away? He says, Alhamdulillah. He says, Alhamdulillah, that it was not a man kana yadda'i al-Islam. It was not a man who claims that he's a Muslim. Why? Because infighting amongst the Muslim ummah, this is the worst thing that could happen. Alhamdulillah that it was someone from outside. And it was not someone from this ummah. Why? Because it's going to be bad for him, and it's going to be bad for the ummah. So alhamdulillah that it was someone that was from outside. And at this point, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he knows he's going to pass away soon. So the first thing that he's thinking about, his burial. So he says, go and take permission from Aisha radiyallahu anha, if I could be buried next to the Prophet alayhi salam and next to her father Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Because they were buried in her home, in her hujra. Right behind the wall, Prophet ﷺ is buried, and right next to him is Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. So that's her space. She has the right for that. But Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar radiyallahu anhu, he asked permission. He said, please, if I can have that spot, I would really, that's one of the greatest things that's in my eyes. So Aisha radiyallahu anha, she said, of course, this is for Amir al-Mu'mineen. I had reserved that spot for myself. I wanted to be buried there. My husband is there, Rasulullah. My father is there, Abu Bakr Siddiq. What a perfect place to be buried. But she said, if it's for Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn al-Khattab, I sacrifice this and I give this to you. And some of the narrations mention that Umar said, after I pass away, ask her again, because she may be answering yes because of my authority and position. He had a lot of awe. Who can go to Umar and tell him no? You couldn't tell him no. Everyone's scared of him. So he said, wait till I pass away, ask her again. So now it's not like I'm imposing myself with my authority. If she says yes, then fabiha, then that's good. And if she says no, bury me fi maqabir al-muslimin. Bury me in the graveyard amongst the normal, regular Muslims. So then, obviously she gave ijaza and she gave permission. And Umar radiyallahu anhu, he was buried right next to Abu Bakr Siddiq and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And at that point in time, Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu comes and he says, Rahimakallah, may Allah have mercy on you. I knew exactly that this would happen. That Allah would reserve this place for you. That you would be next to the Prophet ﷺ and you would be buried next to Abu Bakr Siddiq. Why? How did I know this? Because many times I would see that the Prophet ﷺ, when he would speak, he would say, like for example, فَعَلْتُ كَذَا وَكَذَا أَنَا وَأَبُو بَكْرٍ وَعُمَرٍ. I did this and Abu Bakr and Umar. I believe this and Abu Bakr and Umar. We went over here, myself, Abu Bakr and Umar. When the Prophet would talk, he would attribute a lot of his statements to who? Himself, Abu Bakr and Umar radiyallahu anhum. So Ali radiyallahu anhu says, and this hadith is in Bukhari, so he says, I knew from when the Prophet ﷺ would say these things, I knew that all three of you would be reunited together in the same place. Just like how you are buried. Because that's what the Prophet ﷺ would say. And this is also an indication towards the hadith, which is also in Bukhari, where Abu Musa Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, he was once the doorkeeper of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet was at a little well inside of a garden, and he's sitting there, and he's with Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, and Abu Musa Ash'ari is the doorkeeper. So each person that comes to the door, they must seek permission from Abu Musa. So I think it was first Abu Bakr Siddiq came, And he said, it's Abu Bakr at the door, may I let him in? إِئْذَنْ لَهُ وَبَشِّرْهُ بِالْجَنَّةِ. Give him permission and give him glad tidings of Jannah also. Give him permission and also give him glad tidings of Jannah. Look at that. Allahu Akbar. Think about it. The Prophet ﷺ is saying, give him permission to sit inside with me. So he has the company of the Prophet ﷺ in this dunya. That's basically Jannah on earth. Being with the Prophet ﷺ, that's Jannah on earth. So, إِذَنْ لَهُ, give him permission to come sit down with me. He's in Jannah on earth. وَبَشِّرْهُ بِالْجَنَّةِ, and give him glad tidings of Jannah. Yani, in the Akhirah, he'll also be in Jannah. You were in Jannah here, you're going to be in Jannah there as well. So as mentioned, he came and he sat right next to the Prophet ﷺ. Then Umar came. And again, Abu Musa Ash'ari, he asked permission. He said, it's Umar, إِذَنْ لَهُ وَبَشِّرْهُ بِالْجَنَّةِ. Allow him entry and also give him glad tidings of Jannah. He's a man of Jannah in this earth, he's also a man of Jannah in the Akhirah. So he comes and he sits next to the Prophet ﷺ in this well, and they're enjoying their time in company together. Then the next person comes and he says, هَذَا Uthman. This is Uthman, and he is seeking permission. And what did Rasulullah ﷺ say for him? إِذَنْ لَهُ وَبَشِّرْهُ بِالْجَنَّةِ. Give him permission. Give him the glad tidings of Jannah, but not just like that, it didn't end there. عَلَى بَلْوَى تُصِيبُهُ. Give him the glad tidings of Jannah in lieu of the calamity that he will be put through. The trial and the tribulation that he will be put through. Give him glad tidings of Jannah for the patience that he's going to have on that. And then he comes in, and Abu Musa actually tells him, the Prophet ﷺ gave you ijazah, and he said, glad tidings for you, Mubarak for you, you have Jannah, but it's going to be for a great trial that's coming your way. And Uthman thought about it. He comes and he sits down. Inshallah, in the next lesson, we will talk about the shahadat of Uthman radiallahu anhu, which is in the history of Islam one of a great honor for Uthman radiallahu anhu, but really a story of, you can cry tears of blood for the shaheed who passed away as a madhloom, as a greatly oppressed person. Uthman radiallahu anhu left this world and he left the ummah. Uthman radiallahu anhu, his martyrdom was very severe, and it was a great tribulation that happened upon him. Radiallahu anhum ajma'een. This was the first major trial. But notice that Umar radiallahu anhu, he was that door. And even his death, it was not a major tribulation against the ummah as a whole. Of course it was, we lost someone so great, of course. But the major fitnas did not happen right away. They happened after his demise. They happened after he passed away, not before he passed away. And then you will see those fitnas increased, and it eventually led to the demise of Sayyidina Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. So this was basically, we're talking about the ends of times. Some people are asking also, when are we going to talk about the ends of times? This is the door. That was the doorway. We just entered the door. The demise of Umar ibn al-Khattab, that was the door for the fitnas and the signs of the ends of time to start coming. So once that door was broken, Umar was broken radiyallahu anhu, not really broken. He was honored with shahada, inshallah. He's a green bird flying in paradise, radiyallahu anhu, and he's enjoying his time, inshallah, in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'een. But for us and for the ummah, it was a great loss. That's when that door was broken. And inshallah, we'll see next week what happened with the martyrdom of Uthman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu.